I remember the day I realized my home was weighing me down. I was searching for an old photo album, but instead I found piles of things I hadn't touched in years. Books I never read, clothes I never wore, keepsakes from a life I was afraid to let go of. In that moment, I asked myself, was my stuff holding on to me more than I was holding on to it? But then, I met someone who showed me something incredible. Decluttering isn't just about getting rid of stuff. It's about freeing your mind, your heart, and your life. And once I understood that, everything changed. Before we dive into how to declutter not just your home, but your spirit, hit subscribe. If you're ready to feel lighter, more energized, and more at peace, join this journey. Trust me, you won't believe how much freedom comes with letting go. Number 1. Shift your mindset. You're not losing, you're gaining. Let me share a story with you. A dear friend of mine, an elderly woman in her 80s, had lived in the same house for over 50 years. She kept everything, old books, photo albums, heirlooms, and even broken items she swore she'd fix someday. As time went on, her home became a maze of memories, cluttered with things she couldn't let go of. She would tell me, "I can't get rid of these things. They're my past. If I do, I'll lose a piece of myself." For years, I watched her struggle. But it wasn't until one day she called me over in tears. She told me she had just gone through her attic and found things from decades ago, things she didn't even remember having. She realized something important that day. She wasn't holding on to her memories. She was holding on to the past out of fear. And that fear was weighing her down, mentally and physically. Here's where the breakthrough came. She realized that letting go wasn't about losing pieces of herself. It was about making room for new experiences, new memories. It was about welcoming the future, not staying stuck in the past. Slowly, she began to declutter. Not just her home, but her mind and spirit. And the more she let go, the more space she created for new things, new relationships, new joys, new moments to treasure. This story highlights the first life-changing lesson I learned in my own decluttering journey. Shift your mindset. You're not losing, you're gaining. The most common mistake people make when they start decluttering is believing that it means loss. They hold on to things because they think that if they let go of their old stuff, they're somehow losing their past. These items often are the only connection to memories that define who we are. We think that getting rid of them means we're losing a part of ourselves. This mindset keeps us trapped in the past. It makes us resist change, prevent us from moving forward, and limits our ability to embrace the present and future. It's like trying to move forward while looking over your shoulder, always holding on to something that no longer serves you. Holding on to the past out of fear is like trying to carry a heavy backpack. It weighs you down, but you can't see how much it's holding you back. The key is to reframe the act of decluttering. Instead of thinking of it as losing things, start seeing it as making room for what's next. It's about creating space for new memories, new opportunities, and new experiences. You're not losing anything, you're simply creating room for a lighter, freer future. Think of it like pruning a tree. You know how trees grow as branches get older, some of them get weak or overgrown. If you don't prune them, the tree can't grow properly. The same goes for your home and heart. When you cut back the old, you make room for new growth. The tree doesn't lose anything, it flourishes. The same happens when you declutter. You're allowing space for new experiences, new ideas, and new energies to enter your life. So the next time you start feeling overwhelmed by the things you've accumulated, remind yourself, you're not losing anything. You're clearing the path for your next chapter. One that's lighter, brighter, and full of possibility. Start with just one small area, and you'll see how freeing it feels. And remember, each time you let go, you're making space for something better to take its place. Just like that tree, when you prune, you grow. This approach not only clears your home, but frees your mind. Are you ready to make room for the new you? Number 2. The 1990ths rule a simple trick to let go. I have a friend who spent years struggling with the clutter in her home. She'd accumulated boxes of things she rarely used, but they were always there, just in case. A broken lamp she might fix, a collection of books she might read, clothes that were too good to throw away but never worn. She kept telling herself, what if I need this someday? And so, these boxes piled up in every corner, filling her home and her mind with an overwhelming sense of what-ifs. It wasn't until one day she shared this struggle with me that I introduced her to something I'd been using for a while, the 90/90th rule. At first she was skeptical. What do you mean? Just throw things away that might come in handy? She asked. But I explained how this simple rule had changed the way I approached decluttering and helped me clear out years of unnecessary possessions. I told her, if you haven't used something in the last 90 days and you won't use it in the next 90 days, let it go. I could see the resistance in her eyes. Could it really be that simple? But here's the magic. The next time I visited her, she had made a dent. She started by going through her just-in-case boxes and asked herself, if I haven't used this in 90 days and I'm not going to use it in the next 90, why am I holding on to it? She looked at those things differently now, not as precious items from the past, but as obstacles to a more spacious and organized life. In the end, she was amazed by how much she had been holding on to just out of habit, not necessity. This is exactly what the 90/90th rule is all about. Most of us keep things out of habit rather than necessity. We hold on to things that are no longer useful because we fear letting them go, or we tell ourselves, what if I need this someday? But in truth, these just-in-case items don't actually serve us. They simply take up space in our homes and in our minds. Keeping things out of habit means you fill your home with things that aren't useful to you now, nor will they be useful in the foreseeable future. It creates a space that is cluttered, chaotic and stagnant. Instead of enjoying the things that enhance your life, you're surrounded by items that just take up room, physically and mentally. It's like trying to navigate a room full of boxes, always tripping over them, but never using what's inside. All that unused stuff is just extra weight slowing you down. Here's how the 90/90th rule works. If you haven't used something in the past 90 days, and you won't use it in the next 90 days, it's time to let it go. Simple, right? This method forces you to get rid of things that have been sitting around collecting dust and draining your energy. The beauty of the 90/90th rule is that it eliminates the emotional burden of guilt, because it's based on a real practical time frame. You're not making rash decisions, you're making choices based on your present and future needs. Imagine carrying around a heavy backpack, full of things you never use. Every unnecessary item adds more weight, making it harder for you to move freely. You don't notice how heavy it is at first, but after a while, it starts to take its toll. The same happens when we keep things we don't need. It's extra weight slowing you down and preventing you from experiencing the freedom that comes with a lighter load. Letting go of things you haven't used in months, sometimes years, feels like finally putting down that heavy backpack. The freedom is incredible. When you apply the 90/90th rule, you're not just clearing out physical space, you're giving yourself mental space too. You're creating room for what truly matters. You'll be amazed at how freeing it feels and how much lighter your home and your heart will become. Try it for yourself and watch how quickly your space opens up. Decluttering doesn't have to be a complicated process, and it doesn't have to take forever. With the 90/90th rule, it's simple, actionable, and incredibly effective. Ready to take the first step? Start today and feel the weight start to lift. Number 3. Let go of guilt objects, the should trap. I'll never forget the day I visited an elderly man in his 70s, a man who had lived a full life, but his home told a different story. As we sat in his living room, I noticed an old piano in the corner, collecting dust. It wasn't a particularly beautiful piano, but it was clearly well loved at one point. He explained to me that it had belonged to his mother, who had always wanted him to learn how to play. She was so proud of me when I finally got lessons, he said with a bittersweet smile. But I never really learned to play. I kept it because I thought I should. As we spoke more, it became clear that this piano wasn't just a piece of furniture, it was a burden. This piano represented not just his mother's wishes, but also years of guilt and unfulfilled expectations. Every time he looked at it, he felt the weight of an obligation he had never embraced. It wasn't a source of joy, it was a constant reminder of a dream he never shared. He wasn't keeping it because he loved it or wanted to play. He was holding on to it because he thought he should. It was then that he had his breakthrough. He realized that this piano wasn't serving him, it was holding him hostage to guilt. And in that moment, he understood that letting go wasn't just about getting rid of an old object, it was about freeing himself from the weight of a past expectation that no longer had a place in his life. The truth is, this happens to all of us in different ways, but it's particularly common as we get older. We hold on to things, clothes, gifts, heirlooms, not because we need or love them, but because we feel a sense of obligation or guilt. Whether it's something our parents gave us, or a piece of memorabilia from a time we can't seem to let go of, these guilt objects become chains that tie us to a version of ourselves that no longer fits. And just like that old piano, they weigh us down, mentally and emotionally. The mistake here is simple but deeply ingrained in our culture. We keep things because of guilt or a sense of obligation. We feel like we should hold on to them, either to honor someone's memory or because we think it's what we're supposed to do. The guilt comes from the belief that letting go means we're forgetting something important, or worse, disrespecting someone's wishes. But the truth is, this guilt doesn't serve us. It only ties us to expectations that no longer align with who we are today. The danger in keeping guilt objects is that it stops us from living in the present. We keep things that no longer serve us, and in doing so, we allow them to take up space, both physically and mentally. These items act as anchors, preventing us from embracing the life we truly want. Guilt keeps us stuck in a loop, trying to fulfill someone else's expectations rather than honoring our own needs, desires, and identity. And when we keep things because of guilt, we end up with a home filled with things that have no real value to us. It's like carrying around a heavy coat in the middle of summer. It might have made sense at one point, but it's no longer appropriate for the season of life you're in. Here's the key to letting go of guilt objects. Ask yourself, does this item serve me, or am I serving it? If it doesn't serve you, it's time to let it go. Let go of the guilt, the obligation, and the expectation. You don't owe it to anyone to keep things that no longer bring you joy or purpose. You don't have to carry the weight of someone else's unfulfilled dreams. By letting go of these objects, you're not disrespecting the past. You're honoring the present and making space for what truly matters to you now. It's like keeping a heavy coat in the summer. Just because it once made sense doesn't mean it still does. You don't need to keep wearing a coat when the sun is shining. In the same way, you don't need to hold on to objects just because they once had a purpose. Free yourself from the weight, and you'll feel lighter, more at ease, and more connected to who you are now, not who you were. I watched my friend smile the moment he decided to donate that piano. It wasn't just a physical object that left his home, it was a release from the guilt that had been holding him back for so long. He told me that he felt like a burden had been lifted from his shoulders, and I could see it in his face. He was finally free. If you're holding on to things because you should, it's time to ask yourself the same question. Does this item serve you, or are you serving it? By letting go of guilt, you open up space for the things that truly matter to you today. And that's a gift that will last far longer than anything you've been holding on to. Number 4. The legacy box. Keep what truly matters. A few months ago, I met a woman in her 60s who was struggling with the process of downsizing. She had spent decades collecting treasures, family heirlooms, vintage knickknacks, and mementos that held sentimental value. But now, as she prepared to move into a smaller home, she found herself overwhelmed. Every room was filled with things that had meaning, and the thought of getting rid of anything felt like she was discarding pieces of her life. As we sat together, she shared her frustration. "I just can't let go of all of it," she said, her eyes welling up with emotion. "Each item represents a part of me, a part of my past. What if I regret it?" And I could understand where she was coming from. When you've lived a long life, every object has a story attached to it. How could she choose which stories to keep and which to let go? But then she told me something that changed everything. I'm not just downsizing my home, I'm downsizing my life. In that moment, I realized that the issue wasn't about letting go of everything, but about keeping what truly mattered. So I suggested an idea to her. Create a legacy box. A legacy box is a small, special place where you keep the items that truly tell your story, those meaningful letters, photographs, and heirlooms that have shaped who you are. It's not about keeping everything, it's about choosing the most cherished and defining pieces. That way you don't feel like you're abandoning the past. You're honoring it. At first, she was hesitant. Could she really narrow it down to just a few things? But over the next few days, she began going through her belongings with a new perspective. She asked herself, does this item truly represent my journey? Does it tell the story I want to carry forward? And bit by bit, she started filling her legacy box with the things that really mattered. The photo of her parents on their wedding day, the letter her best friend wrote when she moved away, the locket passed down from her grandmother. By the time she was finished, the difference was incredible. She had a small box that held the essence of her life, the pieces of her past that were meaningful and connected to her heart. And the rest, she let go. The process wasn't as painful as she thought it would be. And she even found joy in sharing some of her cherished items with loved ones. The common mistake many people make when decluttering is thinking that you have to get rid of everything. This mindset often makes the process feel overwhelming and frankly impossible. The thought of getting rid of items that have significant emotional value can paralyze you. But the truth is, you don't need to part with everything you've ever owned to move forward. You just need to identify what matters most. Thinking you have to get rid of everything can make you feel like you're losing pieces of yourself. When you approach decluttering with an all-or-nothing mentality, it can cause anxiety, and you may end up not getting rid of anything at all. It's easy to get caught up in the overwhelm, and it can leave you feeling like the task is too big to tackle. This fear of losing everything can prevent you from embracing the freedom that comes with clearing out only the things that no longer serve you. Instead of getting rid of everything, create a legacy box. This is a simple but powerful way to preserve the things that truly matter to you, the things that hold meaning and tell your personal story. It's about focusing on quality over quantity. Whether it's a cherished family photo, a handwritten letter, or a beloved heirloom, the items in your legacy box should be the ones that truly reflect who you are and what you've experienced. This way, you can downsize without feeling like you're losing your identity. Think of your legacy box like a museum. A museum doesn't keep every artifact, it keeps only the ones that truly define history. The same goes for your life. Your most treasured memories, heirlooms and keepsakes are your artifacts. You don't need to keep everything, just the pieces that tell your personal story. By curating your own museum, you honor your past while making room for a lighter, more intentional future. By focusing on what truly matters, you can free yourself from the burden of excess and create a space that feels like home, one that reflects who you are now while honoring the history that shaped you. This simple step can bring you peace, clarity, and joy as you move into the next chapter of your life. Number 5. Give with purpose, passing treasures forward. A few months ago, I had the privilege of speaking with an older couple in their 70s who were in the process of downsizing. They had lived in their family home for over 40 years, raising children and filling the rooms with memories. Over the years, they accumulated beautiful pieces of furniture, chairs, tables, bookshelves, that had seen countless family gatherings, birthday parties, and milestones. As they packed to move into a smaller apartment, the couple faced a common dilemma: what to do with all the furniture that no longer fit in their new space. At first, the thought of parting with these items was heartbreaking. These pieces weren't just furniture, they were vessels of memories. Each chair, each table had its own story, its own connection to a significant moment in their lives. The husband said, "It feels like we're giving up parts of our history, parts of us." But instead of storing everything in a basement or attic, they came up with a different idea. They decided to donate their unused furniture to a young family who was just starting out. This family, a couple with 2 young children, had just moved into their first home and didn't have much. The couple was hesitant at first. Would it be strange to let go of such precious things? But when the furniture was delivered, the family was overjoyed. They set up the furniture in their new home, and it quickly became part of their everyday life. A few weeks later, the couple received a thank you note from the family, along with a picture of the kids playing on the sofa that had once hosted their own grandchildren. "Thank you for giving us these things. They make our house feel like a home," the letter said. Instead of feeling lost, the older couple felt joy. They had given away their cherished belongings, but they hadn't lost them. They had passed them on to someone who would appreciate them, who would create their own memories with them. Many of us make the mistake of thinking that parting with objects means saying goodbye forever. We view decluttering as a loss, a giving up of our memories, our history, our connection to the past. This mindset makes it hard to let go, especially when the items are tied to moments that matter. But the truth is, letting go of something doesn't mean it's gone forever. It simply means it's moving on to a new chapter. If we approach decluttering with the belief that we're losing something, it can create resistance. The idea of loss can make the process feel painful, and it can cause us to hold on to things that no longer serve us, just because we fear letting go. This sense of loss doesn't honor the purpose that these objects once served. Instead, it makes decluttering feel like a sacrifice, not an opportunity. The key is to find meaningful ways to pass things on. Instead of seeing parting with your belongings as a loss, think of it as a chance to give them new life. Donate your things to a family member, a charity, or someone who will truly appreciate them. The couple I spoke with didn't just part with their furniture. They gave it to someone who needed it, someone who would create new memories with it. This simple act turned their decluttering process into a gift, a chance to spread joy rather than feel the sorrow of loss. By giving things away with purpose, you not only lighten your own load, but also help others. You get to pass on your treasures, knowing they will continue to serve a meaningful purpose in someone else's life. And in that process, you don't lose a thing. You gain the knowledge that your belongings will live on in new ways. Think of giving away your things like planting seeds. When you plant a seed in the ground, it doesn't disappear. It grows into something new. The furniture you pass on to someone else is like a seed you're planting. It will grow into something new in their life, just as it once grew in yours. By giving, you're not losing. You're planting the foundation for something even more meaningful for someone else. By giving with purpose, you transform the act of decluttering from something that feels like a sacrifice into an opportunity to create new stories, new memories, and a sense of fulfillment. You get to be part of someone else's journey, and that in itself is a beautiful gift. Your home isn't just a place, it's a reflection of your mind and heart. And the truth is, you deserve a space that feels light, peaceful, and filled with what truly matters. Every item you keep has an energy, a story. But not every story is one you need to carry forward. Sometimes the clutter of your home is a mirror of the clutter in your mind, a constant reminder of the past, of things that no longer serve you. Aging isn't about holding on to everything. It's about knowing what's worth keeping. The freedom comes not from having less, but from having only what adds to your life. So today I want you to ask yourself, what's truly adding value to your life and what's just taking up space? What can you let go of to make room for more peace, more joy, more of you? If this resonated, let me know in the comments. What's one thing you're ready to let go of today? Whether it's an old keepsake, an unused piece of furniture, or even a long-held belief, let's begin this journey of letting go together. And if you're ready to make this journey lighter, subscribe and be part of this movement. Let's free our homes and our hearts together. You deserve a space that reflects the life you're living now, not the life you've outgrown. Take the first step today.